Friends, it seems America's thirst for self-inflicted drama knows no bounds. After a brief shimmering interlude where competence wasn't a punchline, Donald J. Trump has returned to the Oval Office. And much like a raccoon rummaging through your garbage at 3 a.m., he's brought his chaos with him. Joining him in a pairing only the most unhinged political fanfic writer could conjure are two figures who embody the phrase, "What could possibly go wrong?" First, there's Vice President J.D. Vance, a man whose entire political identity can be summed up as, "What if we made hillbilly elegies a governing philosophy?" And then, the coup de grace, the nitrous oxide in America's political nitrous tank, Elon Musk, now serving as a sort of unelected tech overlord, whispering sweet, algorithm-flavored nothings into the president's ear. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, just a teensy-weensy little thing called a constitutional crisis. Buckle up, folks, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. It all started, as these things often do, with a disregard for pesky things like the law. See, in America we have this quaint notion that when a judge, someone who's spent more time with a legal textbook than a MAGA hat, issues a ruling, you generally follow it. It's the kind of bedrock principle that separates us from, say, a particularly litigious pack of baboons. But the Trump administration, in its infinite wisdom, seems to have missed that memo. Our first stop on this tour of legal what-the-fuckery takes us to the great state of Rhode Island, a place so irrelevant it's often mistaken for a salad dressing. Yet, even here, amidst the clam chowder and questionable accents, the long arm of Trumpian lawlessness found its reach. A federal judge, likely exhausted from adjudicating disputes over the proper way to pronounce chowder, had the audacity to rule against the administration. Seems the Trump administration, in a fit of pique, decided to freeze federal aid to the state. Why? Who knows? Maybe they took issue with the ratio of clam to potato in the local chowder. The judge, in a shocking display of judicial backbone, ordered the administration to unfreeze the funds. The administration's response? A resounding nah. They argued, and I'm paraphrasing here because even their legal arguments tend to wander off into nonsensical diatribes about stolen elections and Hunter Biden's laptop, that the president has the absolute authority to do whatever the hell he wants. Checks and balances, separation of powers, those are for losers and suckers apparently. But the Rhode Island debacle was just a warm-up act for the main event, a showdown of such breathtaking absurdity that even seasoned observers of the Trumpian circus found themselves reaching for the smelling salts. This time the battleground was Washington, D.C., specifically the hallowed halls of the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. Now, USAID is one of those agencies most Americans couldn't find on a map if their lives depended on it. They do important work, providing aid and assistance around the world, but they do it quietly. Enter Elon Musk, stage left, riding a rocket-powered Segway and fueled by ambition. Musk, you see, had grown bored with building electric cars and colonizing Mars. He craved a new challenge, something that would truly test his genius. And what better challenge than to take over the US government's IT systems? Sure, he had no experience in government, no security clearance, and a concerning habit of tweeting out market-moving memes. But details. He had Elon Musk on his side. Under Musk's guidance, which mostly involved replacing experienced government officials with 22-year-old coders, things at USAID went about as well as you'd expect. Systems crashed, data was leaked, and employees found themselves locked out of their own offices. When a federal judge ordered the administration to reinstate the USAID workers, the administration responded with their trademark blend of arrogance and ignorance. Make us, they essentially said, puffing out their chests and daring the judiciary to stop them. Now you might be thinking, surely this is unprecedented. Never in the annals of American history has a president so blatantly defied the rule of law. And you'd be right, mostly. While the current situation is about as welcome as a case of the clap at a nudist colony, it's not entirely without precedent. Back in the 1830s, President Andrew Jackson, a man who made Donald Trump look like a paragon of restraint and decorum, famously told the Supreme Court to go and enforce it after they ruled against his administration's policy of forcibly removing Native Americans from their land. It was a dark chapter in American history, one that saw thousands of Native Americans die on the Trail of Tears. But even Jackson, for all his flaws, eventually backed down, recognizing that openly defying the Supreme Court would have plunged the nation into a constitutional crisis it might not recover from. Trump, however, seems to relish the chaos, to feed off the outrage generated by his every norm-shattering move. He's like a toddler who's discovered he can get attention by smashing things, and by God, he's going to smash until someone stops him. Section 5, he shall take care. The problem is, it's not entirely clear who, if anyone, can stop him. The Constitution, that dusty old document we all pretend to revere, is surprisingly vague when it comes to dealing with a rogue president. Article 2, which outlines the powers of the executive branch, does state that the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. It's the kind of language that seems clear enough on the surface, but, like a muddy puddle, grows murkier the closer you examine it. What exactly does it mean to faithfully execute the laws? Can a president simply choose which laws he wants to enforce, and which ones he wants to ignore? The Trump administration would have you believe the answer is a resounding yes. They argue that the president, as the head of the executive branch, has broad discretion in how he chooses to enforce the law. They point to instances throughout history where presidents have used executive orders and other means to circumvent Congress and the courts. But what they fail to mention is that these actions were generally taken in times of national emergency, when the very survival of the nation was at stake. Unless they're planning to declare war on Rhode Island clam chowder, it's hard to argue that the current situation qualifies as an existential threat. Section 6. Roberts raises the alarm. A warning from the chief. The gravity of the situation hasn't been lost on everyone. Even Chief Justice John Roberts, a man so ideologically conservative he makes Antonin Scalia look like a Bernie Sanders supporter, has felt compelled to speak out. In a rare public rebuke, Roberts warned that disregard for federal court rulings must be soundly rejected. It was a stunning moment, one that sent shockwaves through the legal community and beyond. When even John Roberts thinks you've gone too far, you know you've gone completely around the bend and ended up in a ditch somewhere. But Roberts' words seem to fall on deaf ears. The Trump administration, emboldened by a sycophantic Republican Party and a media ecosystem more interested in ratings than reality, has doubled down on its defiance. They've launched personal attacks against judges who dare rule against them, accusing them of being activists and enemies of the people. It's a page ripped straight from the authoritarian playbook, and it's terrifyingly effective. Section 7. The Shadow of Musk, a tech titan's influence. Behind the scenes, whispering in Trump's ear and pulling the strings of government like a puppet master high on Adderall, is Elon Musk. The tech titan, having successfully infiltrated the highest levels of government, is using his newfound power to remake America in his image. He's pushing for the privatization of everything from Social Security to the national parks, arguing that the private sector can do it better, faster, and cheaper. And while there's no doubt that Musk is a brilliant engineer and entrepreneur, his track record when it comes to respecting things like privacy, labor rights, and basic human decency is, shall we say, less than stellar. Under Musk's influence, the government is rapidly transforming into a dystopian nightmare straight out of a Black Mirror episode. Facial recognition software tracks your every move, algorithms predict your future behavior, and drones patrol the skies, ready to subdue any dissent with a healthy dose of tear gas and rubber bullets. It's a world where freedom is an illusion, privacy is a myth, and the only thing that matters is serving the whims of our tech overlords. Section 8. A Nation Divided, the Unraveling of the Rule of Law. The consequences of this assault on the rule of law are already being felt across the country. Trust in government institutions is at an all-time low. Political polarization is reaching fever pitch, and the very fabric of American democracy is fraying at the seams. People are losing faith in the idea that the law applies equally to everyone, regardless of their wealth, power, or political connections. They see a system rigged against them, where the rich and powerful can flout the law with impunity, while ordinary citizens are crushed beneath its weight. The situation is dire, but it's not hopeless. There are still those who are willing to stand up and fight for the soul of America. Judges, lawyers, and ordinary citizens are pushing back against the tide of authoritarianism, filing lawsuits, organizing protests, and speaking out against the abuses of power they see happening around them. The fight ahead will be long and difficult, but the stakes are too high to give up now. Section 9. Can it get worse? A chilling question for 2025 and beyond. As we stand here on the precipice of 2026, staring into the abyss of a future shaped by Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk, one question haunts us all: can it get worse? The answer, my friends, is a resounding and terrifying yes. The guardrails of democracy, already weakened by years of neglect and abuse, are on the verge of collapse. If we don't act now, if we don't stand up and defend the values that make America worth fighting for, we risk losing it all. The choice is ours. Let us hope we have the courage to make the right one.